welcome to the advanced lesson on teamwork for the Minds and Machines class, spring 2019, and I am your host, Mr. Sonnenfeld. Let's jump right into it. So, I'm going to start off talking about team basics. So, what is a team? How does a team work? And then moving on to some areas related to your standards, such as how to accept responsibility for tasks. What does it mean to demonstrate professionalism while you're in the classroom? And working on projects, maintaining positive relationships with your teachers or with especially with your peers, and then how to use critical thinking in order to make decisions and solve problems, and how to use critical thinking to resolve conflicts. So, team basics. All right. What is a team? The team life cycle, and a little bit about leadership. You know, what makes a team leader, and what are some attributes that you can exhibit through leadership. What is a team? So there's a couple definitions here. I like the second one the best, but Dyer in 2001 said that a team is a work group that must rely on collaboration if each member is to experience the optimum success and achievement possible for that group. So collaboration, working with each other, talking with each other for a specific purpose, and optimum success. So trying to get, for example, in class, trying to get an A on whatever project you may be working on, or you know, making sure that everybody has an optimum learning experience while in the classroom, and achievement, getting something out of your performance in that work group, whatever it may be. Now, typically teams kind of self form, especially in the real world in STEM. You might be assigned a few people to work with, but typically, you have some shared interests already. There's some reason that you are working with the people that you are working with because you are either already interested in whatever it is that you're working on, which is usually the case, or at least you already know the people that you are working with. Now, that doesn't say that you're not going to have to work with people that maybe you necessarily don't, they aren't your friends outside of the working environment. But the end result is that you do have some kind of shared interests, and you got to rely on communicating with each other and working with each other in order to get what you want out of working with those other people. Yeah, the second definition I like better because it goes into a little bit more detail. Don't What is this? Katzenbach and Smith from 1993. I apologize for probably butchering that last name. And they said that a team is a small number of people with complementary skills who are committed to a common purpose, performance goals, and approach for which they are mutually accountable. And again, this goes into a little bit more detail. So it's a small number of people. There's not thousands of people on this team. Then it becomes something else. You're not going to be working with thousands of other people on a team. So a team is a small number of people. I think optimum team size is something like 3 to 5 or 3 to 8 people in the literature. I'd have to go back and actually look at that, but yeah. So you're working with not too many people, and once you start to get to a certain point of number of people that you are working with, you're not going to find this in the classroom. Well, I mean, you end up being broken apart. Once you reach like 10, 20 people, then you're being divided into sub teams already. And so you're really only working with, maybe 3 to 5 or 3 to 8 other people. Complementary skills. So not everybody in the group is going to be an expert in the same thing. We all have our own individual differences. People just do. And so we all have our own different backgrounds and experiences and skills and knowledge sets that we have accumulated before coming into that team. And so it's important to know that, these skills, that they're usually complementary. If somebody's not so good in, say, math or understanding the scientific method or something in regard to these projects, then there is somebody else on the team that probably has those skills. And so you can support each other when you reach a weak spot in the work for your team. People have different skills, and so you got to take advantage of what people are good at and figure out. Everybody should be ready to come to the table, so to speak, understanding what their weaknesses are, so that they know, what tasks they probably should not be assigned, or coming in there with the understanding that they're going to need help from other team members in that area. Common purpose. So that's what I was talking about a little bit with the last definition, with in that, a team is there working together on something because they have either a shared interest in whatever is going on, or a shared interest in the product of that achievement. For this class, say that you really refuse to pick a something to work on that you're actually interested in. You're just, kind of floating through, and waiting to be told what to be interested in. And so you still have the common purpose in trying to achieve that A, or in trying to achieve a certain level of performance. Performance goals. So the people that are coming together in a team will have some kind of general goal for what they want to achieve. So either getting this project done, or getting this paper written, or having a certain level of quality associated with that. And also an approach approach to committing the work. So an approach being, maybe similar task management styles, like you all being in sixth grade, have a similar level of ability when it comes to time management and task management, and figuring out, who's going to do what. And you usually have a shared approach already, in that, maybe you're making decisions democratically. You're taking a vote to make decisions, or you're just kind of letting the most talkative person make the decisions for the group. And so you do have that kind of shared approach to how you're coming into this. And as you continue on and getting into STEM careers, then you start getting a few more tools to be able to fuel your decision making process. So, common purpose, common performance goals, and some kind of common approach. And a team needs to be mutually accountable, or they are mutually accountable in some way. This can be informally, just some team members or the leader maybe getting, at your level, getting upset that the other members may not be contributing as much. And so there is some accountability there. That accountability is just in somebody's head, without actually being formalized or written down somewhere, or agreed upon contractually, that whether actually written or just y'all talking about it. So there is some accountability still within the team, even at your level. Accountability is that, pretty much that feeling that, or that feeling, and the consequences of not performing or not contributing to the team, given a certain role, or within the scope of a certain role. And once you get a little bit better at working in teams, then you start to understand the importance of actually having, something that's written down, or formally agreed upon in the group, as consequences for when team members don't contribute, or don't perform their roles to the best of their ability. Now, that was a lot of information to take in about what is a team, but moving on to the team life cycle. And what this term life cycle means is, what does this subject look like from the moment it starts until the time that it ends? Because, nothing is really permanent, in the grand scheme of things. So, especially when looking at a team, for this class, the beginning is whenever you are assigned your role, or whenever you are assigned your other people that you're working with, or when you pick people to work with, whether for a project or just in your general class roles. And then here at the end is, let's say the end of class, or the end of the project that you're working on. When you're in college, or maybe when you're at work, you're not necessarily, um, you know, you're not necessarily done at the end of the semester or the end of the quarter or anything. You're usually continuing to work on, until whatever it is, until your goals are met. So you're going to continue working on whatever it is you're working on until your goals are met. Even for the projects for this class, or whatever you're working on for this class, some of you might take that initiative to continue working on that beyond, just when this class ends. And if your team is doing well, then you'll continue to work with those people rather than with others. So the team life cycle, and this graph just kind of generally shows over time, and your y-axis, so your dependent variable, is effectiveness. So how does effectiveness change given a time? And this effectiveness that is graphed here very generally with this line just shows that, so at the beginning when a team is created, they have a pretty decent level of effectiveness, but then that drops down, and then you continue to build effectiveness as a team. You're meeting your goals, and then up to a certain point, you've met your goals, and now everybody's kind of not working as hard. But then you finally finish the project, and then it drops off. Or like I said, if you continue to work with those people, maybe at some point the project's got to come to an end. Now, keep in mind your effectiveness can't ever really be zero as a team, because if your effectiveness is zero, that means that the you've lost the game here. You've your team is broken apart. Nobody is meeting working toward meeting any goal. And so if effectiveness ever drops off to zero, that's essentially game over. And if effectiveness is at, it's probably really difficult or very improbable that you will ever have 100% effectiveness as a team or even as an individual working on anything, just because we're all human and we all make mistakes, and we all our brains don't allow us to work at maximum efficiency. It's just a matter of how human psychology, how human neuroscience works, neurology works. So when you first get with your teams, this is called the forming stage, where you're getting to know each other. You're starting to understand what your goals are. You're formally out defining what those goals are, what you're working on as a team, and then there's usually a period of conflict. And it's important to understand before you ever get into a team that there is going to be this stage of conflict where the team is not working as well together, because you all have your own individual differences. You all have your own backgrounds and experiences, and sometimes even baggage that you're bringing to the table with your team, because you're all people, and you all have your own opinions and perspectives on things. So in when you're after you get past that first stage of really defining your goals and everything, then you get to the storming part where everybody's opinions are coming into play, and there's disagreement. And now this can be healthy disagreement, and we'll talk about how to do that a little bit later in using critical thinking skills to resolve conflicts. And as long as every individual member is clearly trying to pick out a role and define a role within the group, and performing that role, then you'll get past this stage and you'll move on to norming. But if effectiveness drops to zero at this point during the storming stage, then your team kind of falls apart and nothing gets done. So it's important to just know and expect that after the formation phase of your team, that there's going to be a period of storming where your team is not doing as much, and so you kind of have to make up for that, either right at the beginning, jumping into a project and kind of outlining everything that you need to do as quickly as possible, or in addition to that, also understanding that you're going to have to make up a little bit of that work that you and your team were missing out on during the storming phase, that is naturally occurring in every single team. Then there's a norming phase where if you succeed in not failing as a team here, and you all come up with some kind of compromise, or just a really good leader comes in and kind of defines everybody's roles for them, or encourages those members to define those roles, and everybody starts to get to work on the actual project. That's norming, where everybody is you're starting to form your own culture, really. We talked about culture in the classroom context a few lessons ago, and so this is where now your team is starting to become its own unit, where you're coming up with shared goals, you have shared values, maybe even out during your work time or outside of your work time. So outside of school, you're talking to each other, and getting to know each other, and become friends if you weren't already. And that's the norming phase, where things are becoming normal. Then you get back to where you kind of were at the beginning, as far as effectiveness and everybody working together on the task at hand. And that is where you really start to perform. So, again, we have the forming phase, a storming phase where things aren't going, where things may seem to not be going as well because you all have your own opinions and there's conflict because of this. But then you start to come together and as a group in the norming phase, and then you start performing. And performing is where you're actually working toward that goal. You are meeting the goal, and then you've met the goal. Now, once you've met the goal, and then, say, final presentation at the end, that's part of that performing stage. Maybe evaluating each other, and that is where you get to this next kind of checkpoint right before the end, where you've either, where maybe you dropped off somewhere and reached zero effectiveness, or your team just never really got along. You never really established this norming phase. You never became like, maybe not friends, but you never, were able to successfully work together. Or maybe just one person did all the work for the group, or a couple people did all the work for the group. And that is where you might go into mourning, where, oh man, this is where students start to really hate their projects, and that, they had bad experiences because they didn't know how the team life cycle was going to go from the beginning, and they had their own expectations about things. And so, the mourning phase is just that, wow, we did not really, either we succeeded, or we didn't. And if we didn't, that really stinks. But even if we did succeed, did we actually work together as a team very well? Because if you didn't work together as a team very well, but you still succeeded, you're probably not going to work with that team again, because everybody's got their own judgment about what happened. So there's mourning. Adjourning is when your team is successful and everybody's pretty happy or really happy with how the team was able to get through these conflicts and come out on the other side. And so adjourning is where everybody, essentially is patting each other on the back and saying, hey, good job, can't wait to work with you again on another project or another aspect of the project. And then you're finished at a certain point. And that's the team life cycle. Forming, storming, norming, performing, and then hopefully adjourning. Leadership. So, how do we get to this point where you're able to come out of the storming phase and get into norming? And this is where leadership is especially critical, and in maintaining this positive buildup during the performing phase, and even even during formation. So, a leader has a role in the team in every stage of the team. And pretty much like the leader is there to make sure that this team life cycle is going as planned and in a good schedule. The leader isn't there to dictate every aspect of the project and to micromanage what everybody's doing, nor is the leader there to do everything themselves. I mean, sometimes they have to, if students or people or coworkers aren't really holding up their end. But in a professional setting, that leader is just there to transition the team from one stage to another successfully. So a team leader has a few different roles. They're providing a purpose for the team, so establishing those shared goals and making sure that everybody understands what those goals are. So providing purpose to the team. A purpose of a leader is to build a star team and not a team of stars. Having a bunch of individuals that, for basketball terms, and this is a little dated, but the L.A. Lakers, back in the day when they had Shaquille O'Neal and Kobe Bryant and the rest, that was a team of stars, and only sometimes did they really come together successfully, become to be a star team. To have those individual names that these are the people that are carrying everybody else, We have people that don't really contribute as much or aren't as important, but we have this person or these couple people that are really performing. That isn't what the leader wants. The leader wants to make sure that everybody has a voice, so everybody is able to contribute to the goals of the team. Everybody has a role, and to make sure that that the accomplishments of those and of everybody is recognized within the team. Establishing shared ownership for the results essentially means that everybody understands and demonstrates that they have a stake in what's going on with the team and meeting these shared goals and producing the deliverables, in actually producing the work of the team, that everybody has a part in that, and has a major part in that in some sort of way. The fourth role of the team leader is to develop team members to the fullest potential, whatever that may be. So, in helping them with be able to communicate their thoughts and their ideas clearly with everybody else, and making sure that if any team members are missing any skills, that they have the ability to go get those skills, maybe providing them resources if needed. And so the leader is there to help all the other team members. Again, so a team leader is not there to do all the work for the team and everybody else gets a free ride. The team leader is there to make sure that everybody else is getting uh, uh, equal and equitable share of the work and of the results at the end. The leader is also there to, sometimes whatever you're working on is not the most fun and exciting thing. I mean, I love math personally, but say you're somebody that doesn't really love math and you're on a team solving a math problems or a math project. It's not always the most interesting work, or maybe that phase of the work isn't as interesting. I love presentations, but there might be some students that, they love doing, say, robotics, and they're doing robotics engineering projects in our classroom. But then it comes time at the end of the year, for them to show all the work that they've been documenting throughout the year, or to actually document that work, and that's not maybe as fun as building the robots or programming them, but it's still got to be done. And so the team leader can be there to make it interesting, maybe by using some kind of reward system, like, hey, when this is done and it's done well, let's all go hang out for pizza or play video games that night. Or just breaking down the work, and instead of making everybody work as hard as they possibly can the entire time, maybe the team leader is responsible for just having those side conversations, and providing socializing opportunities to the members. So the team leader is there to make the work more interesting and engaging. The team leader is there to develop a self-managing team. This is already kind of covered in shared ownership and developing team members to the fullest potential. But the leader isn't there to baby all the members and hold their hands through everything that is going on. Nor is it the leader's responsibility to do all the work. The leader is there to make sure that everybody knows the purpose of why they're doing what they're doing and what they're doing what they're doing, and as for the team. And their other goal is to develop each individual member into their roles in the team, so that the project is just flowing and everybody gets onto that performing stage, and is contributing and becoming even more and more efficient in their work. So a self-managing team, to where team members are able to manage their own responsibilities and roles. Motivating and inspiring team members. Again, this is related to making the work interesting, engaging, but maybe even beyond that, for motivating, inspiring the members, is reminding them of the purpose of why they got together, and to remind them of the stakes of the work, because anything that you do has some sort of stakes attached to it, whether it's writing an essay in language arts, or doing some math problems, or doing something in history class, or doing something in art class. There's some kind of connection to the real world that is either stated somewhere, or that can be discerned, and understood. And so reminding your team members that, hey, if we work on this project, this is something that could help, potentially, help us get into college, or to get a job, in a field that we want one day. Or maybe this problem, if we solve this, this could actually save lives in some sort of way. And so reminding members constantly, of that purpose is really important. To Communication, humans are partially emotional creatures. That's part of our brain, and that's a part of our brain that we rely on constantly. And so sometimes we forget, even after we learn, the steps for effective communication, sometimes we just skip them. And when somebody has a disagreement, things are just said, perhaps in the wrong way. And so the team leader is there to kind of both mediate conversations, and to bring things back on topic, or to make sure that everybody's talking to each other respectfully and professionally, and also just to, especially with the leading facilitating part, making sure that everybody has a voice and has the opportunity to express their opinion, because sometimes the more talkative members of a group can kind of, through their ability to continue, talking and expressing their opinions, they can kind of shut everybody else out. And that is also bad, because usually it's those introverts, those individuals that are a little bit more reserved or quiet, that have been listening to what everybody else is saying, and so therefore have maybe a little bit better understanding of the project or of the work, or have some kind of opinion that is extremely valuable. And then finally, monitoring but not micromanaging, again, by developing a team that understands their roles and what to do. The team leader doesn't have to do everything themselves, and does not have to sit there and walk each member through every step of the process. And helps build trust in the group that everybody is going to do what they're supposed to do. So those are kind of the roles of a team leader. The attributes that make someone a good leader, is being a role model. And again, so this isn't necessarily something. Nobody is a good leader, to start off with. Good leaders are forged. They're made. They either by learning from some past failure at some point, or just from, kind of copying what they have seen other really good leaders do. This is how they develop this. So as I go through these, if you don't think that you have one or more of these leadership attributes, that doesn't mean that you can't be a leader. You all have the potential to be leaders. You just have to, fake it till you make it. If you don't have that confidence level yet, if you just exhibit the behaviors and think the thoughts of a leader, at some point you will become a leader. So the first attribute is being a role model. Being a role model. So living the values of the team and leading by example. So say that you're kind of maybe a lazy person, which is not bad at all, because laziness, you look for the shortcuts, and sometimes those shortcuts are good. But say that you don't have the best work ethic in general, and maybe you're not used to actually being the one contributing to a team. So what you do is you just put in the most work of anybody else, and especially if you're given a leadership position, and if you just do the work and you define the roles, and you make sure that you're doing what a leader is supposed to be doing, then everybody else will kind of follow along with you. Or at least they have the ability to follow along in your footsteps, because you've provided them a model of what it is to perform in a role on the team. Demonstrating integrity, standing by your word, doing what you say you're going to do, supporting other people, helping others, making sure that they're able to get access to the resources they need to complete their role, being charismatic and energized, being passionate, and which is essentially being passionate, being interested in whatever you're doing, connecting it again to that bigger idea, that bigger that thing that's at stake out there, whether it's saving lives, or solving some kind of global problem. Everything that you're doing connects to that stuff in some sort of way. And being positive and excited about that for your team, even if they're down in the dumps. Maybe the team's just not having a good day, maybe y'all just had a really bad conflict. Being the person that wants to bring everybody together back and focus everything back on that main purpose. Being somebody that inspires, so connected to this, creating an inspiring vision. What does it look like when your team is working hard? If your team were to work hard, and share that with your team. What does that look like? How is that going to benefit your members? Another thing to think about with this is, what will it look like once you've accomplished whatever task you're supposed to be doing in this team? So if you're working on a class project, describe for them what it's going to look like when you all have A's and you get to come home and show your parents that you got an A on that project, and show them what that project was, what you did for it. And even, what's it look like when this problem is solved? Whether it's if it's a solving a problem for astronauts. So what does it look like? What is that going to help humanity do if you all work on this project? Or whose lives could you save by working on this engineering thing? Or how are you going to help society through your robotics engineering project? Remind your team about this overall deeper meaning behind your project, and set direction for them. Who's responsible for what are the roles? Direct emotions. If emotions are getting kind of negative, then bring it back to the positive and bring it back to the goal. If people are getting a little too uptight about meeting the goals, you have people that are perhaps what's the word? Workaholics, or just really strict about they're treating other people badly for maybe not necessarily showing or performing at the level that they should be, and being negative to them about that. That isn't what the team's about. It's not about punishing and complaining about and yelling at the people that aren't necessarily pulling their weight. It's about figuring out a way to bring them up to everybody else's level. So directing emotions, making things positive and kind of laid back in your team. Because again, a self-managing team, there's no a self-managing team is the most relaxing kind of team that you could possibly be in, because everybody already understands what they're supposed to be doing, and they're doing it, and they trust the results that everybody's coming up with. Encouraging risk taking, experimentation. If somebody has an idea, making sure that that idea is stated. Experimentation. Somebody says that they want to try something, making sure that they have the ability to do that. Enabling people to grow through this, empowering others, helping foster collaboration. So figuring out, who should be working together. How can the team best allow those members to work together? Who else do we need to bring into the team? Those collaborative relationships. Leveraging diversities. Everybody has their own individual differences and experiences and background knowledge, prior knowledge that they're bringing into this team. So whose perspectives would be most useful here? Does anybody have a background that might help understand the project problem space better, or the solution space better, or how something is supposed to be built or made? You know, other forms of diversity, like, is everybody that has been making decisions so far, are they mostly male? Then that can lead to some bias. So making sure there's gender diversity in the decisions of your group, or racial diversity, or even socioeconomic. So are we thinking about this problem just from the perspective of privileged individuals, or are we thinking about this project in terms of what about somebody that doesn't necessarily have money? What do they think about this project? What is their perspective? Especially when you're building like a product or something, or a service or something that's going to be sold one day, you kind of want that perspective of both the your ideal customer, and also maybe the person that would benefit most from your product or service. That's a lot of info. Sorry. And building synergies, that's just, who works well together, or what roles work really good together, and how do we allow those people to work together more. Achieving, focusing on results, bringing everything back to that main purpose and what needs to be done, the project requirements, whether that's given to you by somebody like me, your teacher, or whether those requirements are based on your research of your event future users or customers. Being persistent, reminding people of this purpose, bringing it back to it all the time, reminding people of their roles, discovering and pursuing opportunities. If there is something that your team could totally use, figuring out a way for your team to use that resource or to leverage that information. Leading change. If something isn't going right, if maybe your team is stuck in the storming phase or you haven't yet figured out a way to finish the forming phase. You haven't figured out what the roles are in your group and what you're actually working on. Being the person that says, hey, we got to do this before we move on to something else, or this can't be business as usual. We need to make a change because our team isn't operating as effectively as it could be. Being the person to actually say that and to do the actions. Leading by example, living the values, leading change, and learning from feedback. Whenever the leader should be the one to kind of, it's everybody's job, but especially the leader to kind of really take in that information that you're being given by, your users that you show your solution for whatever you're working on or your project, your teacher, so me, if I am ever giving you feedback, making sure that feedback is implemented, so that your team again is as successful as it possibly could be. Optimizing success and achievement. So that was leadership, and that was what a team is and how it works. So if you have gotten to this point, and I don't know how long this video is so far as I'm recording it, but this might be a moment to take a break for a little bit, get up, stretch, relax, and then we'll continue on. All right, the second section for teams, for teamwork, is accepting responsibility. This is getting into your standards. So how do you actually how are you going to meet the standards for this class? What are the skills that you need to perform well in teams for the sixth grade, and how do you do that? So the first one is accepting responsibility, for your work, for your role in a team, understanding how to define that role, all this stuff. Very important to you, and it's part of your how you will be assessed for this class. Some essential questions for this section: how do you accept responsibility for specific tasks in a given situation? And then how do you complete those assigned tasks in a timely and professional manner? And by discussing this and learning the answers to these questions, you're going to be able to accept responsibility for specific tasks in a given situation, and you're going to be able to complete assigned tasks in a timely and professional manner. Now, again, you might need to do your own independent, study, independent research based on some of the information that I give you here, and you're going to have to put in the work. Like when we're talking about time management or task management, you actually got to go out there and try some of the strategies I suggest. Or I'm talking about professionalism, you got to actually live, embody what is being talked about in your day-to-day discussions in class and outside of class. But if you do all that, then you're going to be able to say, everybody will be able to look at you and say, hey, this person accepts responsibility for tasks in a given situation, and this student or this person can complete assigned tasks timely and professionally. And those are good qualities to have. So the answers to these essential questions, broadly speaking, is that you accept responsibility for specific tasks in a given situation by practicing self-management. There's your answer right here. Self-management. Effective self-management is supported by goal setting, ethical decision making, and time management. So practice self-management, which is goal setting, ethical decision making, and time management. How do you complete tasks in a timely and professional manner? Well, you do that by maximizing efficiency. Remember, we were talking about efficiency and related to teams. Well, this is on the individual level. So, maximizing efficiency, minimizing procrastination. So, that kind of time wasted not working on those things that are high value to you, that are most useful to you. Um, you can also use productivity tools, and I'll give you some examples of that. And knowing how to effectively work with others, communication, collaboration. If you do all this, then you'll meet those standards. So, oh, we already covered this. Awesome. So, again, just a kind of a bulleted view of what we just said. Accepting responsibility for specific tasks in a given situation involves self management and also a little bit of teamwork. So you have goal setting, time management, knowing your role in a situation, and also, how do you perform that role with a team? Um, and beyond just the basics of what a team is and how a team works, like we learned just a little bit ago, this is focused on, who's in a team and how should you be communicating with each other. Self management. If you aspire to be successful, you must take responsibility for your own actions. You can't blame your low performance on anybody else. At the end of the day, say you're working on a team, even though this applies to your individual work as well. Excuse me. So, say you're working on a team. If nobody else has the discipline to practice self management, you still have to practice the self management because you're still responsible for the deliverables or for the work. And so somebody still has to get the project done, even if nobody else wants to work on it. Or if somebody is not willing to take on a certain role, somebody with the discipline to practice self management has to step up and take on that responsibility. So if you aspire to be successful, you have to take responsibility for your own actions. And that also sometimes means doing the things that nobody else wants to do. Self management itself is this process of directing and controlling your actions to achieve goals. Really simple. Directing and controlling your actions to achieve goals. And as we'll discuss in a little bit, part of this key is, to pick the right goals to focus your actions on, but making sure that whatever you're doing is in relation to a helpful goal. If you have good self management skills, you will take ownership of the goals you set for yourself and the decisions you make, how you use your time, and how you control stress, both related to your work and in your life in general. And there are three sub processes again, goal setting, ethical decision making, and time management, which contribute to your ability to manage yourself. Goal setting. It is said that a goal is simply a dream with a deadline. So, goals can be very broad, they can be very big, they can be crazy. But if you attach a deadline to it, then you can start figuring out, all right, what steps do I need to take before then in order to reach that goal by that deadline? And if you have dreams, like say you have aspirations and things that you want to accomplish, put a date on it. And that way you have kind of that structure to actually perform the actions necessary to make that dream a reality. And one of the tips that I was able to find is crafting a future picture. And so while I'm talking about this or right after, I really do encourage you maybe to pause the video or just to stop and take the time to work on this exercise. And a future picture is a clear and compelling description of what you want your life to look like at some point in the future. So actually taking the time to write that out, a little narrative. My suggestion, just start writing about it. And, once you start, it could be a sentence. I want blah, blah, blah. But then you can expand on that and be more specific, use specific details and say, by this age, I want this, this, and this is how I'm going to get it. Or these are the steps I need to take. And you can end up expanding that into a full page, couple pages. And that is a clear future picture. Now, keep in mind, you want to be specific with, what point in the future are you talking about? Because, this could be more or less useful to you, depending on how far in the future you're picking. Say that you are picking at some point in your 20s for your future picture. Well, that is awesome and super helpful. Although you might want to also consider your future picture your senior year of high school, or maybe a little bit older than 20s, because you only got so much access to resources. You only have so much work experience in your 20s, that depending on what field you want to go into, especially in STEM, sometimes it might take you a little bit longer to be that a rock star in your career path. To be successful in goal setting, your task is not just to describe that future picture, but to be sure that all your actions bring you a step closer to it. So after you've made this future picture, going back and figuring out, all right, so what is the step right before I am that CEO of that company, or right before I am that rock star scientist? What is it that will bring me to that point? Okay, cool. So that is step Z. What is step Y? What needs to happen immediately before that? Okay, if we figured that out, so in order to uh, get hired in the CEO position, I need to do the interview. If I want to be successful in that interview, then I need to have these certain skills. This is how I get those certain skills. So again, breaking it down from a big future picture into small steps, and then figuring out what those sub steps are. Maybe for the CEO example of a business, you want to be a CEO. Maybe of an existing company, and so you need to get hired or transferred over. That's also going to involve you having a strong network. So, okay, here's a strong network. I need to know people. Wait a second. There are steps that come before having a really strong, cool network of people that are helpful to me. What are the steps that I need to take in order to form that network of people I know that are in powerful positions that can help me? So, breaking everything down. Got it? Good. And if you want to go through this together, maybe mention it to me. And if I get enough students in my classes that are interested in doing this as a class, or in seeing me do an example of this, then I could totally do that for you. The goal setting process. So, in addition to this exercise, was another exercise for you to do. And the first step in this is to dream big. That future picture will help. That future picture will help, especially if you have it at multiple different levels of age. So dreaming big, having big goals. What are the big things that you want to accomplish? If you don't know what they are yet, take some time and figure that out. Take a walk. Actually think about your life. Put down the technology, put down the video games and the social media for a little bit, and actually do some introspection, some self-reflection, some thinking about who you are and what you want to be. And that is, I mean, you're in sixth grade, so maybe you haven't had the opportunity to do that yet, or nobody's ever told you to think about it, perhaps. So go ahead and take the time to get to know yourself, and that will help you set these goals. Once you figure out what your dream is, attach a deadline to it, and be specific with what your goal is, and then list how to accomplish it. What are the steps you need to take? You will hopefully have tens of steps, if not even like 100 steps, depending on how far off in the future your goal is, or your dream is, or how big it is. There might be hundreds of steps on the way there to becoming the number one selling rap artist in the nation, or in being a famous author or famous dancer or something like that. There are a bunch of steps before then, so figure each of them out. Work towards your goal. Once you have those steps, then you need to start, and we'll talk about task and time management a little bit later, but you need to actually pick those steps and set deadlines to them, actual dates when you want to accomplish them by, and start working toward that goal one step at a time. The getting and with this and getting help and support, if you do not accomplish a goal by a deadline, do not beat yourself over up about it, because as long as you are working toward that goal by that deadline, then you are making progress, and that is amazing, and that is awesome. So just a reminder: don't beat yourself up if you miss a personal goal deadline, because it can be adjusted. Maybe you just weren't being realistic enough, or you didn't understand all the issues that were coming up in trying to accomplish your goal. Life isn't as easy as it seems sometimes. Or sometimes it's easier. But just understand that that you want to work one step at a time. And sometimes new steps will pop up that you didn't even know that you needed to do. And it's just a thing that happens. Get help and support, especially right now while you're in sixth grade. Every single person in the world is willing to talk to you and be interested and help you. And that won't you won't get the same level of help and support that you can now, because anybody and everybody would be willing to help you right now. But once you turn 18, graduate high school, then you end up a little bit more on your own by that point. People stop, really caring whether you succeed. Right now, everybody cares whether you succeed. I care whether you succeed. Your parents do. Your friends do. They all want to see you succeed. That changes a little bit when you become an adult. So make sure that you take advantage of that right now. And even when you become an adult, always ask for help if you need it. Figure out the people that are out there that can help you, and or what resources you need, and figure out ways to get it. Finally, reward yourself along the way. Anytime you accomplish one of these steps, or one of these mini steps that you found out you had to do, make sure to actually take the time to reward yourself in some way. Now, the the trick is to the reward is actually accomplishing the step that you wanted to do. And you're going to get a really good feeling from accomplishing goals. If you haven't already been accomplishing goals before, if you've never set any goals for yourself, or set really good goals for yourself, then actually accomplishing them will feel really, really good. And it's a reward in itself. But if it's especially these little mini steps, they're kind of a pain. Like maybe you gotta email somebody, or call somebody that you don't really feel like doing, in order to baby step your way to one of your major goals. Then take the time to do something that you love as a reward, and that will also help your goal setting. Heck, reward yourself for identifying your dream. Identify yourself, or reward yourself for identifying your goals. I reward yourself for even listing the steps to achieve that goal. Reward yourself for every little thing you do. Just make sure that you don't that you have a equivalent reward for the work that you put in. Some of the benefits of goal setting is it gives you a mission and a purpose. Once you have a mission and a purpose, that helps you focus your time, energy, and talent, and it just feels really good to know what you are wanting to do with your life. Um, of course, it's very wise to keep your options open, to keep your mind open to other opportunities and possibilities, because you don't know everything in the world that there is to know. There are jobs out there that you will never hear about, and then suddenly one day you're going to hear about it and be like, "Wow, that would have been I never even thought about that before. I would totally love to do that." And that could totally change your mission and purpose. But so you don't want to put blinders on and ignore all the opportunities in the world because you're focused on one thing. But having that will help you focus your time, energy, and talents. So use it. Use goal setting. Decision making. It is said that successful people follow a decision making process. The first part of that is by stopping and thinking about whatever problem you're facing. And it doesn't matter if it's an interpersonal problem, so a fight or a conflict with somebody that you actually know, or whether it's even a math problem, or maybe something that's not very defined very well, like, oh no, I have to solve this issue that astronauts face. How do I do that? Stopping and thinking about the problem is the first step. And then defining the problem, actually writing down or typing down somewhere what the problem is, and the problem space. What is out there, what is related to this problem, What other problems are out there? Getting the facts, doing the research, brainstorming some solutions, weighing your options, considering the values. You know, what is it that the people that are being affected by this problem actually want in a solution? You know, does that solution meet all their needs? Not just their wants, what they think they want, but the actual needs of the people that have this problem. Deciding and acting and reevaluating, and really the decision making process sounds a lot like the engineering design process that we're going to be learning about. You know, just the engineering design process has you document every step. Decision making, it's a little bit quicker. You end up you kind of do this in a split second. Once you really get really good at critical thinking skills and you practice them a lot, you end up doing this all the time. Already, you probably have some kind of rough version of this, but you know your brain likes to be lazy. That's what brains are for. The brains are there to make you do less work. So your brain might skip a few steps. You might get the facts and then just immediately decide and act without actually breaking things down, brainstorming solutions, weighing your option, considering values. Your brain is trained to do things as quickly and lazily as possible. So your brain might skip those steps typically, even though you think you're doing this. But by actually formalizing it, maybe typing or writing it down, that can definitely help you in decision making. Related to this decision making is the ethical trap, and this is when you make some bad decisions, which is going to happen. This could be minor bad decisions like, oh no, I totally stayed up all night playing Fortnite, or talking to my friend when I should have been doing my project, or I should have been doing my homework. Oh no, bad decision. Or it could be worse than that. Either way, people who make bad decisions get caught in this ethical trap. And what an ethical trap is, their solution to a problem turns out to be unethical in some way. Now, ethics isn't this crazy thing where, oh no, I did something unethical, I'm going to jail. No, it's not about that whatsoever. Ethics isn't necessarily connected to lawfulness or anything like that. You could do something unethical that is perfectly legal, and sometimes without realizing it. Like not having integrity is unethical. So, you know, little white lies, you know, whether to yourself or your parents, like, you know, you come home from school, you get home before your parents, you were supposed to be doing your homework, but instead you were kind of just playing around on the laptop for a while, or watching TV. Your parents come home and you tell them, oh yeah, I worked on this project. That is technically an unethical solution to your problem of, you know, getting exposed by your parents for not doing your homework the moment you got home, or for not doing the chores or something. So again, it can be as little as that. And as a result, you know, a secondary unethical problem comes up. And so this ethical trap is, now instead of having one problem, that person has two. And this can snowball, because then if you have two problems that you could potentially face, and then those problems come up, and you have to come up with a solution, and if your solution is unethical, then all of a sudden you've got four problems, little problems, big problems, something like that. So an example to this is, following up with the last one is, you lied to your parents, and maybe they came in and actually caught you with the TV on, and nowhere near work, or maybe they actually checked your planner and they saw that, hey, you had math homework tonight and you don't have any math problems done on, or that you can show us. So we caught you in this lie. Suddenly, not only do you not have your homework done, but then you lied to your parents about doing it. So there's your two problems. So avoid doing this at all possible costs. Ethical decision making is recognizing your options for solutions to a problem, considering your values, which is that making sure things are ethical, what you're doing is the right decision, and then acting on it. avoiding the ethical trap involves using this decision making process to avoid making more problems for yourself. Now, again, we are human. This will happen sometimes. But if you formalize and maybe write down all your problems as they come up and go through this step by step and write out each thing, then you might not necessarily get caught in the laziness of the human brain, um, and its preference for just basing decisions and actions based on emotion. Time management. And again, this is all part of self management. Self management is to help your own performance and efficiency and that of your team as well when working in teams. Time management is this process of organizing and using your time wisely. Seems really simple. And the importance of this, though, is that time is a limited resource. You cannot get more of it. You only have so much of it. And how you spend it, if you spend a certain amount of time to one thing, then that is time that you would not spend on something else. And this can add up. Like, um, let's say you like social media, and so you spend, let's give a low number, like you spend an hour on social media a night. Well, by the end of the week, that's 7 hours. By the end of the month, that's 28 hours. By the end of the year, what's that? Roughly over 300 hours. Now, that 300 hours in that year that you spent wasting your time on social media, that could potentially be time that you were putting into learning a new skill or doing something else. Um, Even something relaxing, like say you want to be an artist. Okay, so using that time that you were spending investing in somewhere else, you could then turn into learning a new style of drawing, or actually just practicing your art a little bit more. So keep in mind that because time is a limited resource, it has a lot of value, and it can snowball. Just spending 10, 15 minutes on something a day is 10 or 15 minutes that you were not spending. That's 10 or 15 minutes that adds up from every day. And over time, over months, over years, that ends up being quite a giant chunk of your life. Every little allocation of time that you have. So make sure to keep this time management thing in your brain as you are you know, working or not working on your projects or on your assignments or on your schoolwork, or on developing some kind of skill for yourself. Is that you know if you start now, that will snowball into you being an expert in this thing within a few years. And a few years from now, if you didn't actually allocate that time to doing it, then you're starting over from square one. Efficiency. So related time management is efficiency. It's a broad term describing how well a leader is making use of their time and their other resources. And the whole purpose of this is this phrase, work smarter, not harder. Well, I mean, oops, you still want to work hard. If you don't work hard, then work's not going to get done. But you don't want to work hard when you don't have to. And the brain would much prefer to do less work. You would prefer to do less work. So being more efficient, using time management and other resources efficiently allows you to do that working smarter. Really, being smart is just knowing yourself and acting on your goals and meeting goals. That is what being smart is. Accomplishing the things that you set out to do is the smart thing to do, and not doing it is what we consider not smart. So, use your time and other resources effectively, and that's efficiency. Some steps. How do you do this? How do you use your time and other resources effectively? The first off is by paying attention. Especially like with the class assignments and stuff. Or there was one thing that I mentioned the other week. Like if you can do all of your projects pretty much on one subject if you wanted to. on one topic. And that could save you tens, hundreds, thousands, tens of thousands of hours by the time that you graduate high school. Hey, there is a way that you can make efficient use of your time, and working smarter and not harder. That saves you so much work, and yet you're getting so much more out of your work because you're not wasting your time picking all these different topics. So that's just one way. Or maybe your teacher says something like, hey, this is going to be on the quiz, this is not going to be on the quiz or test. And so then you're not wasting your time studying that thing that you didn't have to, or you're not expending your energy, or you're using your energy to study something that is going to be on the test, and that way you're getting more out of what you're doing. Coming prepared, so you're not going to be able to jump on opportunities if you can't remember what they were. So always having something to write with and something to write on is very valuable, especially if you don't have a mobile device, or if your mobile device is prone to not having any battery charge, then just having something to write with can be good. Or having what you need, like for example, say for your perfect STEM career, for your ideal career, you actually need this like certificate, or you need you need a to be able to show that you can do work in this area for your resume. Well, if you have never done anything like that before, then you're not going to be able to get your dream job when it comes up, because you don't have anything to show them. You have nothing to show for it. So coming prepared also means, thinking about the future and what you're going to need in the future, making sure you have it. Staying goal focused. We talked about goal setting, doing things right the first time, so kind of not taking shortcuts, following all instructions, not taking shortcuts, meeting all the requirements that are given to you for your work. Sequencing your work efficiently, so not doing things that should be done later earlier, and earlier things later. Doing things in order will totally save you time. Maximizing uptime and minimizing downtime. So again, that's staying goal focused, doing things right the first time, and eliminating the amount of time that you were spending on either your rewards, kind of reducing that time down, that ratio of time that you're working to time that you're not working. That's what that's about. And then the last step for efficiency is just doing your hustle, like putting everything you got into your work. And that helps, of course, if you have something that you're passionate about. Procrastination. Our videos from the assignments lesson, where we watched some videos about straight A student tips and how to study effectively, they kind of already addressed procrastination, which is this practice of putting off for no good reason a task that should have been done right now. And there was actually one of the guys, I forget what his name was, or what the video was off the top of my head, but he mentioned a word that was this, I think it was the Greek equivalent of this act or feeling of procrastination or procrastinating. And he mentioned how our brains are hardwired again to be lazy, and to dismiss the value of rewards that are in the far off future, and to overemphasize the importance of rewards in the short term, aka not actually putting in the time to learn how to design video games, and instead just playing video games now, because your brain is getting this healthy dose of reward chemicals for playing that game, and your brain is not really getting those reward chemicals from immediately from learning how to program video games. So because that other reward is so off in the future, you're just gonna, your brain wants to just sit back and relax and be lazy. So that is what procrastination is. And then all of a sudden, let's say it's for a project, you're like, I don't need to work on this project right now. I have 2 months. There's nothing to worry about. I'm sure I'll make the time later. And then later comes, and it's the night before our project's due, and you are not even halfway done yet, or maybe you haven't even started for some of you. So, and that is, I mean, it says for no good reason, but really, your brain tricks you into thinking that you like doing things that are wasting your time. Your brain tricks you into being lazy. That because it's designed to do that. It's designed to avoid things that aren't essential for your survival at the immediate moment. But if you were to think about it long enough, or if that reward were to be more immediate, like let's say that you could learn how to make the best-selling game ever in an hour if you did it, then yeah, you jump right over it. Or you could become the best ballerina in the world within 2 hours if you just went to this one dance practice and did your best. Yeah, of course you'd do it. But your brain tricks you into thinking, oh, because it's not that easy, I don't need to work on it. Anyway, procrastination, you know what it is pretty much, but just keep in mind that it's not you that's procrastinating. It's this weird object that is in your skull that is really squishy that is tricking you into not doing the things that you want to do because it's lazy, aka it's your brain. So, how to do this? How do you avoid procrastination, become more efficient, manage your time, make good decisions, and set goals? Well, there are tools that are out there. I'm just highlighting three basic tools right now. First is the use of digital calendars. Something like I personally like the calendar on iOS. I have an Apple device. Um, but also like Google Calendar is absolutely fantastic. And what these can do is they can actually show you, what do you have to do on a certain day. If you input events or if you input information into your calendar, then you can just kind of pull it up, and as soon as you wake up in the morning, or a little bit later, once you've gotten ready for the day, once you're ready for the day, you can pull up and look at all the things that you have to do that day that you might not remember otherwise because of that morning fog after waking up. So digital calendars are fantastic. Sorry, and you can also use them to kind of schedule and prioritize those deadlines for your goals and to figure out, okay, what date do I want to accomplish this goal by? No matter if it's something like a lifelong goal that you have, or whether it's just your homework for the week. Figuring out when and where can you do things. That way, you're not double booking yourself. You think that, oh, I'm totally going to have time on Friday to do my homework that's due Monday, but you forget that you have a baseball game or something on Friday, or that you have to go with your parents to run errands Saturday morning, and you would know all that if you put it in your calendar. There's also a lot of time and task management apps, and I'm not really going to go deep into this. You could Google it, and you can search in your mobile app store, and find your own. Try them out, see what makes sense to you. A lot of them might not meet your needs right now as sixth graders, but there might be some out there that do. One that I personally love, I think I have a couple. Most of them I tried that I haven't really liked or haven't met my needs at the time. But one that I really loved was the Brain, which I believe there's a free download of it on mobile devices. And what this pretty much does is allows you to make a to-do list, but you can randomly, kind of connect ideas together, and it's kind of how your brain works a little bit, in at least that semantic processing, that kind of conceptual processing of how ideas relate to each other, and you can actually make that happen, which you can't actually do like on paper very well or very easily or in any other program besides the Brain. It's pretty unique. Definitely check it out, maybe a video on it. It is a little advanced, but that is the tool that I personally use. So again, find your own and use it, whatever you think it may be, for time management, for task management. And another tool to use, as was mentioned in the assignments lesson, was use a reward system. There was a picture that was shown of gummy bears on textbook paragraphs, and there were like 20 gummy bears on this textbook page, and the person would eat one every time they read a paragraph. So use some kind of tricks like that, or give yourself 10 minutes of a break for every 50 minutes of work that you do. Figure out ways to reward yourself for the hard work that you've been putting in. Um, yeah, teamwork. On the whole, so how do you take all this self-management and apply it to a team? Well, understand team composition. That there are going to that a successful team has team players and it has mentors. The team players are pretty much anybody involved. Are they all collaborating, communicating with each other? Are you doing what you need to do to collaborate and communicate with your fellow team members? And mentorship. Do you have a mentor? Do you have mentors? Do you have multiple people that you know that you can ask questions to, and that maybe even officially know that they're your mentor? Like, you can ask somebody that's older. It could be an older brother or sister. It could be somebody in your chosen career field. Either way, identify who those people are that have some expertise to share with you. Next is communication. So how do you communicate effectively to practice self-management? The first is by active listening, so paying attention, rephrasing things that are said when you're talking to somebody, questioning and feedback, actually asking engaging questions to let the other person know that you're interested in giving feedback to people on their ideas and opinions in a positive, constructive way. Professional, and reading things critically, reading everything, reading your instructions, reading the directions, and analyzing, where did this come from? Why do they actually want me to do this thing? And that will help you save time. Followed agreed upon procedures. So if you're in a group, figure out, if you have a complaint in the group, do you talk to people outside the group? Probably not, because they're not going to help you, or they might not be able to help you. Um, do you complain to all your other team members that so and so is not doing their share, or that so and so didn't do this one task correctly? No. Instead, you follow agreed upon channels. Like, I'm going to bring my complaint to the team leader. That could be one of your actually established procedures in the group. Is that to resolve conflicts, there's a certain way to do it. Um, Keeping communications open, so not closing down. And I know I've had this problem in the past where I got something in my personal life that's maybe not necessarily going well. Maybe a death in the family, or pet sick or something like that. I don't know. And you have this going on. You need to let everybody know that this thing is going on, and that you're not able to work at 100% like you usually are. Because if you let people know ahead of time, then they're not going to, then they're going to be more accepting of that than if you just never told them and weren't performing your role to the best of your ability. So if you have anything going on, make sure that you're able to talk to others about it, and be sure to listen to them when they're trying to tell you the same kind of thing. Address small problems early because they turn into big problems. Yeah, so with this, say you have a parent that isn't feeling good and is sick, and that's already a small problem. As soon as that's happening, a couple days in, maybe, and you think it's going to be a little bit that your parent's sick, maybe tell your team members that, so that you aren't randomly just like, oh, I can't contribute to this project on Sunday night when it's due on Monday, and then your team doesn't get a good score because they trusted you to do this and you just didn't have time. So that turns into a big problem, when it could have just been a small problem of you not necessarily feeling brave enough to say anything. And watch each other's backs. That's a huge part of teamwork, and how to be efficient and practice good self-management is just to look out for your fellow team members and not throw anybody under the bus. If somebody's not pulling their weight, instead of ratting them out, actually help them pull their weight. What do they need? What do they need to understand in order to perform at their best? And so and stick to the definition here. Stick to the definition of a team whenever you're working in a team. Figure out who is that small amount of number of people. Who are those people? What roles do they have? Who do you need on the team in order to be successful? What perspectives and backgrounds do you need? Complementary skills. Just remember that other people are stronger in some areas than you are, and that their opinion is absolutely valid because of this. But it's the same thing with you. Don't be discouraged because you have some kind of expertise or knowledge that would be good for the team. Committed to common purpose, always remember and bring up that common purpose that you and your team are working on. Make sure to actually set performance goals and kind of understand each other's approach for problem solving, and hold yourself accountable for how your team is doing. This is going to be a long one, isn't it? All right, I think it's break time real quick. Break time.